Yeah. My name is Michelle Moore. A little bit about my background. I grew up in the United States, was educated in Houston and in Austin and in Germany. And after I did my MBA, because I had also done an undergraduate Russian degree, I moved to Moscow. And I started my career as a management consultant with Pricewaterhouse. And so I ended up leading tech teams, building and leading tech teams for about 15 years, as Sashka said. But I'd like to tell you why I'm in Armenia today. I'm in Armenia because I actually gave birth to a person, a daughter named Sashka Avanyan, who is part Armenian. And she did birthright and has stayed here. So every year I have come to Armenia to travel to visit her. And this is probably my 7th trip. So thank you, Seda Nare, for inviting me to speak at FemInno this year. I'm excited to talk about my favorite topic, team attention. So, because I have been leading tech teams, I know what it's like to be struggling with performance, to sustain high performance without the burnout. So I became interested in this topic about 6 years ago, before the pandemic. And we have a clicker problem. There we go. So you know about the attention economy. The attention economy is referred to as the collection of social media companies that harvest our attention in order to create shareholder value. So they take our attention freely and use it to make money. We know that attention equals money. You are aware of this. But the converse is not true. Have you ever thought about team attention or harnessing the attention in your team? What about harvesting attention of your employees so that they can create, innovate, and problem solve without all the burnout? We know We know that even Charles Darwin, back in 1871, said, attention, hardly any faculty is more important to the intellectual progress of man than attention. And what is happening in today's tech-driven economy is we have forgotten that we actually need to harness attention inside ourselves, inside our teams, to solve the big problems of the world. And we know also that even before the pandemic, 75% of workers in the United States said, I am distracted at work most of the time. This number is now higher. So what can we do about this? We can begin to harness attention inside of our teams. But first we need to understand, what is attention anyway? So attention is the mechanism through which the body converts brain power, converts and directs resources from the brain so that we can innovate, create, and problem solve. It's kind of like metabolism, which converts food into energy. And here's an important point. Attention is different from focus, right? Attention happens inside the body. Focus is a skill. It happens outside the body. It's the ability to concentrate. And we can train focus through meditation, through other training courses in order to be able to concentrate better. But attention has to be harnessed and protected. So what do we do? The solution to harnessing and protecting attention inside your valuable team is to consider work design. How do we design work so that attention is protected? We know that work design and workflow has been going on for years, but we are in a new era now, the era of distraction. We know that technology teams are distracted, disconnected from their bodies. They have difficulty prioritizing. It's hard to manage time. They're disconnected from their bodies. The head is always in a screen. So we have to get back to thinking about work as a place where we can protect this important asset we need for innovation of attention. So what is work design? It's this combination of culture, behaviors, environment, and tools that support and surround us at work. What I see these days is that because tech teams are so addicted to their tools and need to use a lot of tools, we see that there's accidental work design. Not a lot of leaders are thinking about how do I protect my employees' attention. So we have accidental work design because people believe I have to respond to everything immediately. They believe that instant response is here to stay. They believe that I have to work overtime in order to get my valuable work done. These are just beliefs. Instead, we can be intentional about work design. We can just not say, oh, well, that's the way it is. We can say we want to create an environment to allow attention protection to be there. So let me give you an example. So a couple of days ago, I had the good fortune to attend an orchestra performance in your opera house. And this is a picture I took from the balcony during the performance. And as I was watching the orchestra play, I realized, wow, the orchestra has it so easy. They are able to harness attention for a superb performance. Why? Because of work design. They create value through their musical performance in one single environment in a concert hall. And they are able to focus in that concert hall because there are no interruptions. So their environment, the stage, is designed for all of those musicians to harness attention. We don't have that in our tech teams. They have the advantage of a minimalistic tool set. Most musicians are playing only one instrument, and for sure they're only playing one instrument at a time. And their violin or their cello is not interrupting them constantly with notifications. That violin is sitting there in the case, waiting to be picked up and used when it is needed. So that's the other advantage the orchestra has in work design around tools. Then when we look at culture, the orchestra also has a culture of mindsets, agreements, and behaviors. People know when to respond, when to wait, i.e., when to play, when to be silent. Do we know that in our tech teams? They have been trained to focus. The sheer act of practicing a musical instrument is an embodied experience. We have to move our fingers on the violin strings. We are focusing because we are in our body and we are trained naturally for years and years and years to be able to concentrate because you have to do that to play an instrument. This is different in a tech team, right? We are able to flip between tools. We are not trained to focus at work. Finally, balance. The balance between intellect and the body are there in an orchestra, right? They use their intellect to make music, but they are also having an embodied experience at the same time. And this is an example of intentional work design. So orchestral team work design is intentional, visible, and it's pretty darn clear. When we look at the complexity of work design in a technology team, first I want to ask you, how many of you have received notifications since I began this talk? Exactly. So maybe you know on a very basic level the problem that I'm talking about. If we're in the workplace, it's even worse. And so I'm going to share for the rest of the talk 5 simple work design actions that you can take in your team. We've talked about tools. In the orchestra example, we know the tool set is minimal. How many apps might you have downloaded on your desktop, on your laptop? How many screens do you have open at a time? When we think about the tool set of a tech team, we might recognize that we have shiny new tool syndrome. I know in the last tech team I managed in Canada, I was running a tech company that was implementing technology, philanthropy, and grant-making software for clients. And my team was so smart, and they wanted to help clients so badly, and they always were looking for new tools to use to offer to solve the needs of the philanthropic organizations they were solving. So we had this term, we said, we think we have shiny new tool syndrome. We're eating too much candy in the form of tools. And so the first recommendation is to take an inventory together, sit down together with your team and ask yourselves, which tools are really mission critical? Which tools do I have to have open on my desktop at any given moment? And there's a book called Your Happiness Was Hacked by Vivek Wadhwa from Harvard. And he did research, which I find almost difficult to believe, but I'm going to believe the research, and it is this. Most teams only need 4 tools beyond email, calendar, and word processing. Only 4 tools to get their innovative or value creation work done. Imagine that, only 4 tools at a time. So that is something to think about. Take inventory of your tools and figure out what is mission critical, what do I really need in my given workday. Also recognize with each other that, maybe we have shiny new tool syndrome. That's okay, it's normal. Shiny things are interesting and new tech is coming out all the time. There's nothing wrong with that. Just recognize, is shiny new tool syndrome causing us to work overtime because we are downloading too many tools? Or can we scale it back and have more of a mindset of digital minimalism? And that's the final point on tools, is that if we can cultivate an attitude of digital minimalism at work as well as at home, we will have a much more happy and productive team. We will be avoiding this problem of high turnover, high burnout, and unsustainable performance. So culture is a really, really big, big topic. And that is why today I'm only going to talk about one small but impactful behavior, and that is this behavior of instant response. I've already mentioned it, that we have a culture if we work in tech, of instant response. We believe that we have to respond instantly to everything. We have to respond instantly to our texts, to our emails, to our Slack channels, to our Mighty Networks channels, whatever channels we're in. And if we notice, is that really necessary? Do we really have to respond instantly, or are we having just fear of missing out? So the first step here in tackling this cultural behavior, this habit of instant response, is to sit down collectively as a team and have a discussion about the current default behaviors. When are people using instant response? Why do they do it? And then you have a conversation specific to a role, specific to a team type, about what does instant response mean? It's like defining the difference between an emergency and a non-emergency. So for example, for the software implementation team or the configuration team, right? We might sit down with that team and ask, okay, instant response might be needed if a client is about to go live and they are texting us or in real-time conversation with us because there's this go live deadline. In that case, we have an instant response clarity that yes, in this case, instant response with this client is absolutely necessary, please do it, right? But then we have other scenarios where instant response is just not necessary and people are just doing it so that they look like they're busy or because they're afraid that people think they are not engaged. So resulting from these conversations and looking at different roles in a company, looking at different team types, we can establish an instant response agreement so that everyone has clarity on what they are supposed to do in terms of instant response. And this can create a huge amount of relief and also improve performance, reduce overtime, and improve innovation all at the same time. The next topic is, the next element of work design is environment. We already talked about the orchestra, where it's really easy. They're just kind of in one space, right, creating value in this concert hall. Well, we all know we create value in physical spaces as tech teams. We create value in a hybrid space. We create value online. And this can be confusing. And the most dominant topic is always meetings. You know, I have interviewed in the last couple of years over 100 leaders of tech teams. No one has ever said, please, can we have more meetings? So this is why these recommendations are very, very simple, but they're not easy to implement, because can we have fewer meetings? But the first thing to do is please have your leaders agree to fewer meetings. Have shorter meetings, have an agenda and a purpose, and start and end on time. Again, I cannot stress, I know these look obvious and they look easy. They are obvious and easy, but no one is doing this. I have never come into a client site where they are actually following these simple rules. So this is a quick fix, doesn't cost any money, and it can bring huge relief in terms of the time you can save. Then we have focus. Again, it's a skill. It's the ability to concentrate. So companies are buying meditation apps for their employees. Yes, that's a great thing to do to train focus. But the recommendation here I'm going to give, again, is in this context of instant response. In order to focus better, stop giving the false sense of urgency around instant response. Block your time. Prioritize deep work. This is innovative work where you're doing problem solving, where you're creating deliverables, where you're really creating something tangible of value for a client or for the world. That is what is called deep work. That's a term coined by the author and research scientist Cal Newport. And so when we understand what is the deep work or the important work or the innovative work that I do in my role, and block time, 2 hours a day, 4 hours a day, but this also has to be a team discussion. The leader has to be involved, and people have to respect when time is blocked for focused work time. If teams are not respecting each other, this doesn't work. So this again has to be a collective team discussion in order for it to function and to give that benefit of relief. Balance. I mentioned that as tech teams right now, we kind of live in a disembodied experience, right? My head is always in a screen. My head is always in a screen. I'm disconnected. The mind-body is disconnected just because I have to be on a laptop all day, because I am writing code, because I am configuring a system. And so this is really, really challenging, as opposed to the orchestra, where the work that they do, they are automatically balancing intellect and the embodied experience while playing an instrument. So we have to ask ourselves, are we taking breaks? Can we get up and walk around? Maybe instead of having a Zoom meeting, if your meeting partner is in the same city, take a walk and talk with your colleague or with your client. We started to do this in COVID, actually. In Canada, that was really popular. We started to do walk and talks because we were in lockdown for so long. And remember that you have a body. You are a body. And if we are not in our bodies, we are also losing the ability to tap into wisdom. If we are only tapping into analytic thought and intellect, and we are never tapping into the wisdom of the human embodied experience, we are also losing nuggets for innovation. We're losing nuggets for problem solving. So this aspect of balance is not just about work-life balance. It's about intentionally getting the head out of a screen, relaxing, coming back into the body. Can I feel my feet on the floor right now? Can I feel that I'm sitting, right? Just a simple pause like that helps relieve that head in screen disembodied experience that, frankly, I mean, I have it all the time myself, too. So in closing, team attention is an asset to be harvested inside of your team. Don't give it all away to the attention economy. Harvest it inside your team, and your team will thrive. And if work design is done, even just these simple steps, the ability to improve performance, reduce burnout, and improve innovation is immense. So with that, I invite you also to my workshop tomorrow, which is on the same topic. We can workshop any of these so that you can have some concrete actions to take back at work with you. And I thank you for your attention.